about you growing up here, what kind of backstory do you want people to know?
Technically, I've been working on making $1 million, my whole life, but
She kind of lost like that spark in her eye.
and it made me begin to question what I was doing. I'm getting to the point where I need to make money. Anything that would allow me to sustain myself without feeling like I was trapped into something. And I was able to experience this freedom that I wanted in my life.
You could tell that my sister had a desire in her, like a urge to create this thing, and she was being blocked and stopped from being able to create it.
She was just this vibrant, bright, loud, confident person.
Are you really gonna give that up? And I was like, yeah.
There was emotional things that were coming up.
But since they let me go, it just gave me it gave me so much freedom. It gave me so much lightness. And I was really beginning to express myself as who I wanted to be, what I wanted to do. And I was able to then start my insurance exam queen business. Okay. All right, you ready?
Yes.
I'm good, okay. So I had created so much business for the company that they had to hire way more instructors than what they had. And then they had me train the instructors so that they would teach like me, talk like me, and have the same pass rates like me. So the teaching team, it completely expanded. And I was actually able even to bring my friend on as a teacher.
My name is Randy Lockhart, and I am the COO of Insurance Exam Queen with Melissa Dillon. I've known Melissa for over a decade. So I actually met Melissa, it's probably about 12 years ago. We were at a workout boot camp. Hundreds of people went to this boot camp and people shared their stories and whatnot. But she immediately stood out to me, and it's kind of funny. I hadn't talked to her or anything, but she was just this vibrant, bright, loud, confident person. And she had this wild necklace on. And one of the people in her group of friends, they were kind of standing next to us, said, oh my gosh, if anybody could wear that necklace, Melissa could. And I just remember that standing out. And then later on, her sister spoke at the event, Sarah, and she really stood out to me, and her story kind of connected. And when I realized they were sisters, they even stood out to me a bit more. And at that point, you kind of just followed everybody on social media that you met at these events. So, I mean, I remember following them on social media and whatnot, and she just continued to amaze me. We got to know each other more, seeing each other at events. We were both in insurance. We both had just kind of similar things going on, but we were primarily social media friends, commenting on stuff, liking stuff and whatnot. But I just continued to follow her story because probably one of the most interesting people I've ever met. And throughout time, we ended up getting closer and working together, things like that. I say now that when I saw her, it's almost like I knew this girl would change my life. I don't know if I knew it at the time. Retrospect's always a little bit clearer. There was something about her, and there definitely still something is. So she was posting that she was teaching for an insurance company, and I was working for an Allstate agency out in Los Angeles. She was in Arizona, and so I asked her about it, and she ended up getting me a job there also as an instructor to teach insurance.
She ended up taking the manager position. I didn't want it because I'm like, I don't want to manage people. I just want to teach people. She took over, she expanded, she helped to grow all of this.
They all reached out to Melissa. She was, the best instructor there. We were all following her lead. She didn't want the manager position, so she recommended me. And so just, a couple months in as being a teacher for that company, I was applying for the instructor manager because I did have a lot of manager background. I did get that role. And so she and I worked side by side. While I was the instructor manager, I wasn't necessarily like her boss. We were more like a team, but I managed the instructors.
I, at that point, actually was a full-time employee for them.
This is when she started traveling a lot, and I was the one trying to make that all happen, trying to keep up with the demand for Melissa, because we had not seen anything like it.
Initially, I was contracted with them. I told my manager, if my, what's it called? Cobra, something on there, that's an exam question. Cobra, I had it from my teaching job, and it only lasts 18 months. And, having had cancer before and my thyroid stuff, I have a daily medication I need to take. I have to have my blood drawn every so often. That's a whole other story, my cancer in my boarding school. But anyway, I needed medical coverage. So I told my boss, who had hired me, that I was like, if you guys don't get me medical coverage, I'm gonna have to go somewhere else. So they like turned the world around at the company to make sure that I was offered a full-time position so that I could have benefits and they wouldn't lose me. So now I literally built my position. I made myself so valuable to the company that they created a position just for me, and then they have to expand the team and bring these people on. Well, every other instructor was still hourly. I was the only one that was full-time on salary. The manager of the teachers was like, well, they're hourly and they need hours. And so they scheduled all of them for classes. I was no longer teaching. Very rarely was I teaching because I had trained all of them to be little clones of me. Since I was on salary, they didn't book me. So I'm just sitting at my computer. I'm like, this sucks. I felt like it was back in my call center days of being chained to my desk. I wasn't required to do anything other than answer some emails, but I also felt like I couldn't just leave my desk. So I was just like trapped. I felt like trapped all the time because I was living under the beliefs in these conditions. If they're paying you 8 hours a day, you need to sit here 8 hours a day. Back when I was traveling, I didn't have that feeling, but it just kind of led to this point where I got really dissatisfied with what I was doing. I'm not loving this spot where I'm at. And one of the companies that had hired the corporate company I was for to come and teach classes decided to have an in-person hired in-house instructor. I was like, oh my God, like somebody had sent me the link and they're like, you're perfect for this. And I'm like, I am perfect. They would totally want me. Like they requested me to come to all of their classes in multiple locations. I was teaching for them in Texas, in Mississippi, in Oklahoma. I know there's another one out there somewhere, but I don't remember. But they had me teach all the time for them. And so now they're hiring an in-person, in-house instructor. But I was like, this company is kind of meh, and I would not do it. I will not work for them unless they were to pay at least $100,000. And someone's like, well, do you know how much they're gonna pay? I'm like, no. And they're like, well, go find out. So I call HR because they already know me. And they're like, oh yeah, like this is a $90,000 to $100,000. I was like, that's mine. Like I am making $100,000, no doubt in my mind. That's my job, $100,000. And they wanted to move me to the South, which is near my sister. And I was so super excited because I at the time I was in Vegas and I didn't want to be in Vegas anymore. I knew this job was mine. Every part of my body, every cell in my body knew that this job was mine, absolutely 100%. And so what that did for me was it allowed me to believe that $100,000 is mine. I should definitely be making $100,000 for what I was doing. Having come from the mindset of teaching in a public school system, making $30,000 to $40,000, it was a hard stretch to think that I could believe that I could make $100,000. But working at the corporate company, I had gotten myself up to like 60, sometimes close to 70 with bonuses, but I wanted like 100,000 no matter what. Now my body, my energy, my cells, my alignment is that I should be making $100,000. That job did not pan out. Like it ended very abruptly. The person in charge was like, got weird about it and it just dissolved. But I didn't feel any type of way about it because I was still vibrating at like, I should be making $100,000. The idea of that job also sparked in me that I can, if I was to leave the company I was at, which was a company of teaching the insurance exam, and go to this other company who's in the business of call centers, if I was able to start a YouTube channel teaching the insurance exam and have that job, I wouldn't be in conflict of interest. There was no way I could have started my YouTube channel at the job I was at. So I began like dreaming of like, I could have a YouTube channel. I could do this. But when that opportunity fell, it was like, well, now I can't start a YouTube channel because I'm still at the company. It would be a conflict of interest. So I explored like, maybe I start a YouTube channel talking about life or talking about relationships. And at the time I was in my second marriage, which was a total whirlwind of a relationship. It was exactly what I needed at the time because just like my daughter exposed for me the fact that I had all this trauma, and I began working on it as soon as I realized it, but not maybe at the level of intensity that I needed to work on it. And that really got exposed for me in my second marriage. I was like, okay, maybe I can start a YouTube channel about talking about relationships because look at this relationship that is like the love of my life. We met, we quickly got married, and like maybe I can tell people how to attract their partner quickly. But like there was a part of me was like, don't do that because you're not actually happy in this relationship. He presented himself to be a person that was in alignment with what I wanted and who I wanted to be. But he was able to maintain that until we got married. And once we got married, he became who he actually was, which was a person embedded in his own trauma. He never wanted to leave the house. He never wanted to go anywhere. He never wanted to do anything. And this was after we had a 3-month engagement where we traveled all around the country. So it was a stark contrast from like who I met to who he actually was. And I got married in between. So I whatever, but it is what it is. I don't feel regret for any of my decisions. I trust that what I did was purposeful. Now, some amazing benefits to what I received in that marriage was, one, he always encouraged me to be what I wanted to be. I didn't look like this before we got married. I was more of the, brown haired professional looker. My sister calls it my Karen look. I look like a typical woman, not in my craziness. He helped me to really embrace my craziness, dress how I wanted to dress, look how I wanted to look, wear my big old jewelry like I wanted to wear. And so I really loved that from that relationship. The other thing that I got from him was he had never held down like a job. He did everything like as an entrepreneur, and he made his own money doing his own thing. It broke the paradigm belief for me that in order to survive in life, you have to have a W-2 paying job. So I could see this person, he's up into his 40s, never really having a job, and he's survived and he's fine. And I'm like, okay, like maybe there is, maybe living the entrepreneur lifestyle is possible for me. And in that relationship, I also had immense amounts of healing. I could go into some very crazy trauma therapy moments with him, but I will save that for another time. So I'm thinking of like, if I can't do an insurance exam queen channel, maybe I'll do something else. The relationship thing was an idea, but it didn't really feel genuine to me because I wasn't in love with my relationship anymore. And I also kind of felt embarrassed the fact that I had, gotten engaged in 3 days, married in 3 months, and talking about that was kind of scary. But I had found myself in a group of other people who were wanting to become YouTubers. And we were all following this guy, Aaron Dowdy, and he has an awesome YouTube channel, and he talks about the law of attraction and stuff like that. And he's a guy who just pulls up a sheet of paper and draws on it with markers, which is essentially how I teach. I'm like, well, if he can do it, I can do it surely. So I fiddled around with some different ideas that I could do with the YouTube channel, but it never quite panned out because it wasn't in alignment with who I am. But in that group, I had met a girl who loved to, woman, I hate that I say girl and I want to say women, but anyway, who travels all the time. And she made a post about traveling alone as a woman. And I had made a comment because at this point in my marriage and in my therapy, I had actually just started living like I was single. Like, in fact, that was my mantra, just live like you're single. Stop trying to expect him to change. Stop trying to get him to do anything else. He's not gonna leave the house with you. So you just need to do you, boo, take care of yourself. And so I had commented on her thing, next time you travel, let me know and I'll go with you. So I'm still at the corporate company, sitting at a computer all day, doing absolutely nothing other than emails here and there. And she hits me up and she says, I'm gonna go to Belize during Christmas time or in December. Do you wanna come with me? And I literally had no reason to say no. I was making a decent amount of money that I could easily afford the airline flights and the cost of what we were doing. I had unlimited PTO. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna go. And I had never left the country before like this. As a child, my dad drove us into Mexico and Canada, but I've never flown out of the country. And on that flight, going over the ocean, like miles and miles of water, hours of just water. I'm like, oh my God, we are so small. Like, we are so small. And we make our problems seem so big and so like end of the world. That trip was completely transformative. I went on that trip and I did things that absolutely terrified me, that scared me, that there's no way in hell I would do these things. But I decided I wanted to be different. I wanted a different life. I wanted to be brave. And that whole trip, every time I was doing something that scared me and spiked my anxiety, I would say, brave new Melissa, and I would just chant this mantra over and over again. I'm gonna do crazy hard things. Brave new Melissa, brave new Melissa. So I come home from that trip like a completely different person. And in this journey, where I had started wanting to become like maybe a YouTuber, there were some other people I met along the way. At one point, I got invited to a group called Alpha Femme on Facebook. And it's run by this woman, Melanie Ann Layer, who in 2016 was living out of her car, homeless. And when I met her was at like $20 million, having started a coaching business.
Oh my gosh, Melissa. First of all, I want to tell you how honored I am to even get a chance to speak about you and to tell the world my experience of you and how much of an incredible person I feel that you are. Well, I'm Melissa's coach. I have been for a short while now, but I work with female entrepreneurs, mostly women who've been through all kinds of different life events, who are willing to just rewrite history for themselves. People who often haven't had anyone bet on them, but that know that they've got it. And they defy the odds. They just need to be spoken to like they're capable, and everything kind of expands and explodes. They're just self-led, very powerful people that just need to have an equal power conversation with someone who's made it and get the ins and outs and what it takes and what do I need. And I've basically built a me for me, because when I first started my journey, it felt like unless you were already connected to the right people and you made all the right moves, your life's already painted for you before you've even had a chance. And so as soon as I started to figure this out for myself, I thought I'm gonna be so clear with this, that no matter who is on a journey of success in their lives, if they find me, they'll go further, whether they're just starting and they're just looking for a role model, or whether they're self-made and they're looking to go further, or whatever it is. Like, I wanted to be someone that's a resource for women in the world. And so it's what I've become, and I've been doing that for the last decade of my life. And I've been lucky enough to have Melissa in my life as another proof of concept for what I believe in, which is just women just need to be spoken to like they can do it, and then they can.
Like most people would say, if you're homeless living out of your car, what authority do you have to coach people on their lives? But she was good at it and she was successful at it, and she ended up building this entirely huge Facebook group.
So before I even considered that I would end up doing this as a career, what happened is I got to the end of my rope, and I just got to the point where I couldn't blame anybody anymore. Like, when everything's breaking down, there's one common denominator in everything that's not working. And although I thought I was the nicest person and that the world was against me, there was just this moment after everything had fallen apart, my relationship, my career, my money. I went bankrupt, sleeping in the front seat of my car in the winter time. Like, there's nothing left, and I had to just face myself. So I found personal development for myself as an accident, because I was actually Googling at the time how to get validation for my emotions in a very difficult time. And what I ended up finding instead was this beautiful, like, how to have the relationship you want kind of outcome on Google. And I realized I was searching for the wrong things. And so my journey wasn't so much about becoming rich or becoming successful even. It was about reclaiming my life and seeing life differently, because I realized I was putting in the wrong questions. Whether it was in the Google search or with God or with anybody, I was putting in the wrong questions. And it led me down a path of personal power, of realizing everything that wasn't working in my life was all circumstance, and everything that did work in my life was all circumstance. There was very little that I was choosing on my own. And so it was kind of like magic. The minute I started working on myself and seeing changes in my life, I started having people wanting to have a life coach to help them see their life differently, their job differently, their relationship differently. And that's how it started. So my first few coaching calls as a life coach were taken from the front seat of that Honda Civic, basically just explaining what I had figured out for myself, hoping it would make a difference for my clients. And it did. And it just kind of grew through word of mouth, and eventually it became what it became.
And one of her things is that she wanted to help make 1 million millionaires.
So this was such a wild thing. It was 2017. I had just started the Alpha Femme brand, and I opened a Facebook group. I'd been trying to get 100 people to launch this Facebook group for months, and I just didn't have the network. And so I finally stopped procrastinating and made peace with 70 people for the inauguration celebration party. And it just came out of my mouth. I want this space to generate 1 million millionaires. Like, I want to co-create 1 million millionaires. And it was such a big vision, because there's 70 people in my group at the time. I had no idea how I was going to do that, but that's just stayed in my mind. I want to affect the kind of change where it's normal to have big money in the hands of women, where women can do this. And so every single time a millionaire pops in my world, it feels like the greatest gift from whoever's watching, Mother Nature, God, the universe. It's just like, I see them like a bag of popcorn. There's 1 million millionaires in my field, and they're all in a bag, and once in a while one goes pop. And that's what it felt like when Melissa, she just popped. And it's not a question of like, is it shocking? Is it surprising? It's like, if you're gonna do this work, then you're gonna pop.
And so she offers trainings and courses and master classes, just talking to people mostly about energetics, about power, sex, and money. And I was listening to all of her stuff. And there's numerous women in these groups who are making huge sums of money, you know, $10,000 a month, $20,000 a month, $10,000 a day, $20,000 a day, $100,000 a day. It began to become more and more normal to me to see women making all these large amounts of money. And one of the women in the group, I really enjoyed what she had said, and I began following her, connecting her, and joining her programs. And this is Christine Michelle Hayes.
I'm Christine Michelle, and I am a transformational business mentor. I mix what I love to say is the woo and the do for my clients so that they can have these amazing businesses and amazing lives. I love to focus on fame, fortune, and fulfillment. The three F's, putting those together and helping them to really create like epic results, like $1 million years, things like that. So Melissa found me in a group. There was another group where she was seeing like posts from people, and I had posted this post about instant manifestation. And it was talking about, I was charging my Tesla, and there was this guy who had this trouble with he had an S, and I was so curious. I was like, wonder what happened there. But of course, he's in the middle of doing whatever he needed to do. And I was like, oh, you know what? If I'm meant to know, I'll know. And the end result was 3 days later, I ended up in the same place with this person. And I live in a big city. It's not common. And I was like, I think I saw you at the Tesla place. He was like, yeah. And he told me everything that happened with his car. So I gave the formula for instant manifestation. Melissa tried it and ended up manifesting a sewing machine. And she was like, I'm hooked.
And I had started her programs, I think around like in November. And so I come home from this trip in December. I'm bored out of my mind at my job. I have this desire to start a YouTube channel on insurance, but I can't since I have my job. I'm surrounded by these women in this Facebook group who are making sums of money that are unfathomable to me. And I come home, brave new Melissa. And my job had issued a statement that, because this was in the year of 2020, that everyone had to get the vaccine. I don't care what you want to do. You want it, you can have it. I don't have any arguments with you. I don't have any beliefs or whatever. I just didn't want it. I didn't want it for myself. And so the job was like, if you don't get it, you are being let go by January, whatever it was. And I was like, okay, like I did have a conversation with myself. Like, you are gonna lose your best job you've ever had. Yeah, you're bored, but look, you don't even have to do anything to be making the money you're making other than sit at your computer and answer some emails. You have amazing health benefits, you have unlimited PTO, and you don't even have to do anything for your money. Like, are you really gonna give that up? And I was like, yeah.
One of the things that is super important when we think of creating a business, and this is going to work for everyone, the desire to have something big, the desire to have something happen in your life, but then you have all of these other things happening in your personal life and around you. And so she was having a very challenging, very difficult, toxic marriage. She was having some problems with her stepdaughter, her adoptive daughter. And it was just, there was emotional things that were coming up. And so what we worked on a lot was learning to become like a master of your emotions, allowing yourself to feel those emotions, but not let them stop you from moving. Because moving, having confidence in who you are, having conviction in who you are is so important when it comes to being an entrepreneur and putting something out there in the world that no one else is doing. You have to really believe in yourself. And when you have the muddling of like, toxic relationship or really challenging, family relationships, those type of things, they can really weigh you down. And so you've got to have some kind of system or some kind of process so that you can feel it all and not let it overtake you. And so we worked a lot on that.
I was brave new Melissa. I saw all of these women making tons of money. I had been surrounded by a community of people talking about being full-time on YouTube. I had been already invested and enrolled in Christine's classes and courses where she really pumps you up and empowers you to do what you want to do. So I tell my job, I'm not gonna get the vaccine. And so they set the date and they're like, you will be done as of this date. And I had so much relief because to me, it felt like the universe, God gave me what I wanted without me having to force it into action. Quitting my job and starting the YouTube channel it didn't feel right to me. It felt like I was cheating the company. I don't know. Like it didn't feel right. It'd be like being a co-founder at McDonald's and then leaving and starting your own burger joint. It felt weird. But since they let me go, it just gave me it gave me so much freedom. It gave me so much lightness around starting my own YouTube channel related to the insurance exam. It was like, it is your fault you let me go. I didn't leave. I would have stayed at what I was doing. You chose to let me go. So it gave me this immense amount of freedom to start my YouTube channel. So the day after I was no longer their employee, I launched my YouTube channel. I'm taking videos on my phone and I'm uploading them to YouTube. I am starting to kind of just tell more timeline, and I had mentioned this earlier about the trauma I had and all the stuff I experienced. Throughout that second marriage, I was doing epic amounts of therapy. I was meeting with a therapist on the regular every week. I was doing rapid transformation therapy, which is a different form of therapy that involves a little bit of meditation. You actually go back to a past memory.
We started doing these sessions called IST sessions. This may be something that Melissa shared with you guys, but it's this idea that you shut out the world, you shut out your mind, you shut out all conditioning, and you go deep, deep inside into a deep meditation. And you actually just sit with yourself. You sit with the energy and the emotions that have been stored inside of your body, and you give them the space that they need and the expression that they deserve. And once you express them, you just feel different. And sometimes during these sessions, you'll have memories. You'll be pulled back to situations where maybe the outcome of that situation left you with something that's painful.
It's so cool. Like one of the examples is I went back to a memory of my dad screaming and yelling at my mom, and I was like maybe 3 or 4. And this is the thing about this type of therapy is you don't have to remember that it happened. I never thought about this memory that popped up. It just came up in the session. So I went back to this memory, this time when I was 3 or 4 years old, watching my dad scream and yell at my mom. She's sitting on the kitchen floor, banging her head against the cupboard because he's yelling and she's going crazy or whatever. And I wanted to help my mom, but I was afraid of my dad. And I got this, I need to be small. I need to be tiny. I need to hide. But I wanted so much to help her, but I couldn't help her. But the therapy is not about reliving that moment, because what you do in rapid transformation therapy is once you identify where you are and what's going on, you then realize that at that time, you developed a belief that would come in and protect you. So the belief that came in to protect me was you need to be small. Because if I had come, stop hitting my mom, stop yelling at my mom, I would have been the one also now receiving the screaming and the yelling and the punishment from my father.
But now you have the opportunity to go back and to revisit it. A situation that happened to us when we were 7, obviously we're going to walk away from